right, good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. The time is 6 p.m. And we're here for the budget work session of the City Council. We do have a quorum present, so I'm calling the meeting to order. Item number 2 on our agenda is citizens' appearance. We did not have anybody signed up to speak, so we'll skip over that. But
I do make my citizens appearance.
But we do have brownies for dessert. There will be an opportunity to have an additional citizens appearance at the end of this night's session. Item number 3 is an introduction from Mr. Lamb.
An introduction.
Start with your name and your address, please.
All right. So this evening, everything we're going to be talking about and everything we've talked about these past few months and for the next several years is about implementing basically a community capacity action plan. You've heard us refer to it in different ways over the last couple of years, and this is just a reminder about our responsibility. Our responsibility is not just to spend less, it is to preserve the community's capacity to thrive while adapting to long-term fiscal realities. Right? So that's what we've been talking about for the last several years. And this year you get to see some of that more in motion than you have in the previous years, even though in the previous years we've made reductions in our expenditures. Tonight is focused on certified values as provided by the Dallas County Appraisal District and the resulting proposed tax rate. The context: it is required in the City of Coppell's charter that we submit a balanced budget for the 2027 fiscal year, and we'll be doing that tomorrow evening. I looked down to that row because that's the row that actually submits it. All right. The submitted budget reflects the financial strategies we have made and received your input and direction on these past several months and weeks. Since 2017, I would say our budget story has been consistently pointing to a future that believes the state legislature will continue to ratchet down property tax revenues and severely restrict local government investments in its own community. With that understanding, the organization, with the support of the City Council, has been planning for and implementing strategies that have slowed the growth of expenditures and set aside funds securing a solid foundation for decision-making now and going forward. Our community, through various feedback opportunities, has told us that the continued investment in the city's infrastructure is the #1 priority and should be reflected as such in building our budget. We recognize that a budget to some reflects a point in time in the present document. And importantly, for our collective efforts, the City Council and staff specifically, we have used the budget as a piece of a complex puzzle whose framework is built around our 5-year forecasting efforts. So our 5-year forecasting efforts are extremely important to our success and have been in this community since the 1990s. These efforts, as previously described for the last several years, start with the Council's direction based on what we know. Limitation on revenues by the state from all sources won't keep up with inflation, and inflation influenced expenditures now and going forward. So what were those assumptions? The assumptions were that Rule 334 regarding sales tax sourcing is in effect, using the 3.499 increase in previous year's property tax revenue, strategic use of general funds and fund balance, and we have some of that going on this year as well, for one-time expenses, maintaining the commitment to Coppell's workforce status to the Council's selected benchmark cities, and our expenditure strategies, which we've said over and over again, reorganizing roles as vacancies occur, leveraging technology to handle routine tasks, reevaluating vendor services and contracts, and thoughtfully stopping activities that bring limited value to the community. We are having candid conversations today so that the decisions made by Council today lessen the potential of difficult discussions in the future. Because of the 5-year financial forecast and corresponding discipline in the budgeting and implementation process, the City Council has created tremendous financial flexibility going forward. The Council has successfully followed a plan that clearly delineates the difference between funding ongoing maintenance and operations and one-time expenditures. And Council will hear tonight final certified values and a summary of previously provided directions from Council on what is included in the final recommended budget that will be submitted tomorrow. I close with this question prior to turning it over to Kim for her presentation. What kind of conversations do you want to have today versus being forced to have in developing the 2030 budget during the summer of 2029? And with that, I'll turn it over to Kim.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor and Council. So this evening, I am going to share with you some changes in the information provided to you prior to this meeting. We had a couple of meetings in July, and so we've had some changes. And so the information I'll go over is what those changes were. After that, I will share, as Mike said, the certified value information. We did receive values from Dallas and Denton Appraisal District on July 24th. And after the values, I will share the proposed tax rate. And the tax rate that we calculated does agree with the tax rate that Dallas County, who is our certified tax assessor collector, calculated. And then I'll provide a comparison of the 2025 tax bill to the 2026 tax bill for a residential property that is receiving a homestead exemption. And I'll end by showing you a receipt that outlines how the city's property taxes cover the cost of each service provided to our residents, as well as their investment in this community. So toward the back of your binder, you will find a section that is titled 8/4/26 Final. And if you're using, it was sent out, Lauren, I believe, sent it out in an email. So each section is a separate file. So behind the 8/4/26 final tab will be 5 additional tabs. And I'm going to walk you through those tabs as I provide you the information tonight. So we're going to begin with this slide, which is the changes of special revenues. And this information is in your binder, and it is behind the tab labeled Other Funds. It's Section A, and I'm going to start on page 1. And so this shows you the first change that we made, and it is with the Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund. The Discover Coppell program was added to the fund description at the top of the page. We also we received direction that the service line should be increased $50,000 for advertising for the resident companies. The next page is page 4. Are you all there? I want to make sure. Have you all found the pages? I don't want to keep going. Okay. So the next page is page 4, and that is the Public Education Fund. Expenditures were added to the Public Education Fund. The expenditure amount is $20,000, and that is going to be used for printed mailers to educate on topics such as the recycle coach, the new carts, and the yard clippings. These are expenditures that are in line with the use of this revenue source, and this revenue source is the 10 cents that's shown on each water bill. The next change is on page 9. Expenditures were added to the Child Safety Fund. And the expenditure that was added is for the crossing guard. That is typically included in the general fund under the police department, but utilizing the Child Safety Fund to pay for the crossing guard is allowed by legislation. Next is on page 13, you'll find the Red Light Fund. We did add a budget for the Red Light Fund. Police asked us to add some e-bikes for police officers to use, as well as a radar speed trailer. And these expenditures are in line with legislation for that fund. Then next, on page 19, you will find the Recreation Development Corporation. We did add a transfer in to this fund in the amount of $6 million. That transfer is from the general fund. The general fund did have an assigned fund balance for future trail projects, and that assigned fund balance was $6 million. So we went ahead and included it as a transfer from the general fund to CRDC this year. Also on page 21, you'll find a walk forward for the CRDC Special Revenue Fund. We have added some assigned fund balance categories. These categories are based on conversations with the Community Experiences Department. And at the bottom of that page, you're also going to see some proposed projects that have not been included in the fund balance walk forward, but these are potential projects that a funding source has not been formally identified. So next is the water sewer fund. And so we heard a request that the water sewer fund retained earnings walk forward should be added to the presentation packet. And that walk forward can be found on page 4 behind the tab B. So it's the WS/tab B. There were no changes made to the water sewer fund. No changes were made to the revenues and expenses at the water sewer fund. We will evaluate rates in the fall once the current year has been closed, and then we bring any recommendations concerning any rate changes to council in the November-December timeframe. The general fund is the next fund with changes, and it is behind tab C. So the changes here, the general fund expenditures can be found on pages 1 and 2. And the first change is a decrease of $53,000 to council's budget, which is based on council's direction to decrease the amount requested by a couple of the service organizations. The next change is to city secretary. $100,000 was removed from this budget. It was determined that the city would not need a November election. There will still be a November election, but because the city is not needing to participate in that election by having something on the ballot, that $100,000 can be removed. The next change is to combined services. Combined services is being increased. Again, the increase is the $6 million for the one-time transfer to CRDC for the trail projects that I just mentioned. It's also being increased for $150,000. We are using some of the 2040 initiatives for an emergency management operations plan consultant. Staff also increased the transfer to the capital replacement fund. We transfer 1 year of useful life to that fund. We had it originally included using some interest earnings of the capital replacement fund, but after further analysis, we think it's more prudent to go ahead and do the transfer and save the interest earnings for any changes, inflationary changes above the inflation factor that we're currently using. And then the last change in expenditures is to police administration. That is, again, moving the $167,000 for the crossing guard program out of the general fund and police budget into the child safety budget. Regarding revenues of the general fund, that can be found on pages 4 and 5 of this section. And the only change is to property tax revenue, and that change is based on the certified values and the property tax rate calculation. And we're going to talk more about that when I talk about the certified values and the tax rate. Moving on is to page 7. And that is where you'll find the general fund's fund balance walk forward. So at the top of the walk forward, that has been updated to reflect the revenues and expenditure changes that I just covered. The bottom section was also updated to reflect the impact of the changes on fund balance policy and charter requirement lines, as well as removing the $6 million transfer from the transfer to CRDC from the assigned fund balance. We also reduced the 2040 initiative line by the $150,000 that we are using for the emergency management operations plan consultant. The next fund is the debt service fund, and this is on page 1, and it's behind the tab D, and it shows the revenues and expenditures of the debt service fund. And again, the only change is the revenue, and that is specifically related to the property tax rate calculation and certified values, which we'll cover shortly. So that's the last, this is the last fund with a change. So the next item to cover is certified property values and then the property tax rate. And I'm going to start with the certified value information, and that can be found behind tab E, labeled assessed valuations. So this page, this first page is again behind that tab, and this slide shows, it's the first page behind that tab, and it shows the final certified valuation for the tax year 2026 compared to the certified valuation for the tax year 2025. The result is an increase of 4.54% in total assessed values of the city. The last year, the increase was 6.61% compared to 11.31% in 2024, 9.25% in 2023, and in 2022, the increase in value was 10.14%. So this is the lowest increase in certified values over the last 5 years. So we're going to take a deeper dive into our certified values. And we're still on page 1 behind tab E, and this information is the information in the chart on the left side of this slide is found at the top of page 1. Okay. And this slide shows the comparison of taxable value by property category for all property in Coppell in 2025 compared to 2026. So this year-to-year comparison by category is also represented by the graph on the right. So on page 1 in your packet, the far right-hand section shows the 2026 tax year certified value is just over $13 billion, which is an increase in value of almost $566 million over the 2025 certified values. The table shows that the combined value of all commercial property in Coppell is 9.7% more than the value in 2025. Looking back at page 1, you can see that the growth in commercial property values from 24 to 25 was only about 4.3%. So moving on to residential. This slide, and again on page 1, shows the change in the combined value of all residential property in Coppell is just under 3%. In 2025 and in 2024, the increase in residential property values for both of those years was in the 8% range. So this is the lowest growth in residential property values that we have had since 2021. The last change between years on here is the business personal property, and it actually decreased about 0.3%. This category, business personal property, typically grows about 2 to 3%. You might recall that there was a constitutional amendment on the November of 2025 ballot that asked voters to amend the business personal property exemption from 2,500 to 125,000. That increase in exemption is contributing to the decrease in the business personal property values. So for 2026, the breakout of the total property value between commercial with business personal property versus residential is a 47% versus 53% split. So commercial and business personal property make up 47% of our total value, and residential makes up 53%. This does represent a slight change from 2025 when it was a split of 46-54. And then in 2024, it was about a 47-53 split. And then back to 21, 22, and 23, we were at the 45-55. So we're really kind of staying in that area. And that really is the buildup of the west side. Because back in the 90s, that split was an 80-20 split, with residential values being 80% of the total value and commercial only being 20%. So are there any questions on this slide so far, the certified values? Okay.
I've got a question going back many pages, if you don't mind.
Okay.
In the water sewer presentation, you don't need to go to it.
Okay.
How consistent has our winter averaging been from year to year?
Jerry, do you know how it's been?
I can't say that.
What the winter average is?
Well, just how consistent? Do we see much a change in that number from year to year?
I don't think we see much change. We're not seeing,
It's like 6.9 and then 7.3. So,
in revenue.
yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we look at the revenue, Mayor, we haven't looked at the volume. I can find that out for you. But it's about, revenue is between 6.3 and 6.9 is what we're seeing.
Ramesh, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Kim, again, thanks for the presentation.
I'm not done yet.
No, so far.
Like, thank you.
Ramesh says you are. Thanks for everything you shared so far.
Okay.
So this drop in property values, both commercial and residential, the trend of decreasing appreciation of commercial and residential values, while it does not affect as much on the revenue that we are going to collect and our expenses, I'm assuming it does have an impact on our tax rate because we take this appraised value and use that for calculation, right? So, and I know none of us have a crystal ball, but if this trend continues, will that limit our ability to, well, we can still calculate the tax rate, but if people are expecting the tax rate to go down, it might impact that, correct?
So it's the seesaw effect.
Mhm.
So as long as values are going up, the tax rate will come down. If we ever have a year where values decline, the tax rate will increase. Does that answer your question?
It does. I mean, what I'm getting out of that is the appreciation seems to be going down. And if that continues, then we would be more like a flat seesaw where change in tax rate might be difficult.
I would say that the change in the tax rate will not be as drastic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right? I mean, we've seen some larger changes.
You're gonna see it tonight.
Yes, you are. When we get to it.
One other comment, Mayor. The mayor of Farmers Branch was telling me that their commercial value went down almost 20%. So for us to see a 9.7 increase, that's a good news story for us.
Well, that has to do with the content of the businesses where the exemptions hold forth. They're not nearly as warehouse oriented as we are.
They're more office, they have more office than we do. Office is what's been impacted.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Kim, remind me, so on new construction, we saw the residential increase quite a bit. And remind me of the ramifications of that for the tax rate. The new construction isn't included, right?
Right, and I'm going to talk about that next.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna dive deeper into the values.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'll wait.
If I don't answer your question, then
No, you'll answer it. I'm sure. I'm positive.
continue.
Continue, yes.
Okay. So we are going to move on, and this slide is at the bottom of page 1, and it shows the breakout between new construction and reappraisals. The last column on page 1 provides the growth breakdown for the 2026 tax year. The first section at the bottom of that page and on this slide is the new construction. And so new construction makes up a little over 83 million, or about 15% of the increase in value. In 2025, new construction made up almost 74 million, or almost 10% of this increase. So page 1 of this slide shows a breakout of the value from new construction between commercial, residential, and business personal property. Commercial new construction makes up about 71 million of the total, or about 12%, and of the total increase in value. And then the growth from residential new construction is almost 10.6 million, or about 2% of the total growth in value. And so to answer your question, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later too, but the 83 million equates to about $366,000 in property tax revenue from new construction, and it is not included in the no new revenue tax rate.
Thank you.
So the next section is the reappraisals, and reappraisals are initiated by the appraisal district, And reappraisals make up just under 483 million, or about 85% of the increase in value. The commercial reappraisals make up about 299 million, or about 53% of the increase in growth in value. And residential makes up about 190 million, or about 34% of the growth. And then the value from business personal property did decrease almost 6 million. And again, the decrease is in the business personal property is related to the increase in that tax exemption that was approved by voters last November. Are there any questions concerning valuations? Because the next thing we're going to talk about is the tax rate.
Real quick, and this doesn't matter at all, but just wondering about the math. The business personal property on the bottom is 5.9, and on the top of this chart is 4.9. Is the $1 million delta like new business personal property that wasn't in last year's? Is that where the difference is?
Yes,
Is that why they're different?
the top is not in new, correct.
So it doesn't have any
It wasn't
new
on the
business.
roll, correct.
Okay, so
And
that's
this
why.
is just strictly what was on the roll last year.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Jim?
So just to make sure I understand, so we have a little bit higher amount of our total valuation that's off the books with respect to the no new revenue tax rate, because we have a higher new construction revenue.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
it's, yeah. We'll talk about it more
Okay.
when we talk about
okay.
the tax rate. The impact of new construction.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Okay, so this slide is not in your packet. However, the information shown in the bright blue columns can be found on page 2 of your packet, right behind the values. The bright blue column on this slide shows you the tax rate and the revenue generated by the tax rate. And so the proposed tax rate is 0.441166, which is this rate, compared to what it was last year, 444,976. The proposed tax rate, to Councilmember Kamar's point, is 0.9% less than the current tax rate. And the proposed M&O tax revenue is about 4% greater than the fiscal year 26 adopted M&O property tax revenue. So if you recall, on the 21st, we talked about the projections I was showing was a $1.6 million increase. And that's simply 3.499% more than the prior year, right? Well, as Councilmember, as you pointed out, the Councilmember Walker pointed out, there's an impact of new construction on the tax levy. And so that's why you're seeing, instead of it only growing 1.6%, the proposed levy is growing 1.9. And that delta, the difference between the 1.6 and the 1.8 is the new construction that's been added. So the value on the M&O rate is about 312,000, and the difference between the 388 and the 312 that you're seeing in the M&O port, that other difference would show up in your debt service.
Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Okay, but is that also affected by the increase in the INS because of the most recent tranche of bonds that we floated, or at the 4 to 5% rate, which is the highest rates that we have? Is that starting to incrementally kind of creep in and increase that as well?
The last time we issued bonds was 2024.
Well, on this one chart, it shows
And
we've got like,
so we issued bonds in 24, and you are seeing, so the 2027, it's 8.5 million, almost 8.6, and last year, right, it's the way that the bonds were set up. So last year we needed this for principal and interest, this year we needed this, and it's the way that we structured those 24 bonds.
yeah, and I mean, you know, we can't pick the yields. I'd love to. We'd all be at 0.5%, but they are the higher rates of any other bonds that we've floated. So, do you? I mean, this is totally off topic, and I'm putting you on the spot, so it's no big deal. But Do you know when those bonds that at the 4 to 5% rate on average are callable?
Do not know, so those,
I'm just curious when we could start looking at refinancing those
Right.
to get them to a lower rate.
well, the
presuming we're at a lower
2015
rate.
are callable. Those are in the 3 to 5% range, and those are the ones that you just did the parameter sale?
Yes, yes.
Right. So those are the ones, the most recent ones that are callable.
Yes, okay, but you know, I was just curious when the ones, because then you've got that other most recent tranche at the highest.
Right. The other
Rate.
one is the 2018 bonds are at that 5.
Yeah, okay. I missed that one.
Yeah, and then the 24, those won't be callable for a while.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but those higher rates are incrementally starting to kind of creep in and put some upward pressure on this too, right?
But when we did the analysis for, we worked with our financial advisor, Jason, and we set the repayment because council's direction was the INS rate needed to stay at a certain level.
Right.
And so that is what we are keeping, the INS rate at a certain level.
Okay, so we're just doing that by not issuing bonds on certain circumstances?
Right, we're waiting until there's some growth, reduction in principal and interest.
Yes, okay.
Right, that we won't issue until we have that reduction, that then we can fill that up to kind of maintain that same principal and interest level.
Yeah, okay, that's fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Anything else on this slide?
Yes, Kim,
Okay.
Ramesh.
Thank you, Mayor. Kim, this is what is proposed right now, and it won't be final till late August?
Oh, so we have, we have certified values and we have a certified tax rate calculation from the county, and we've done our own. And so these tax rates will be what we will bring forward to you to vote on, the maximum tax rate that we can then publish in the newspaper. You won't formally vote on the tax rate until September 8th.
Okay, so this is the maximum tax rate we will propose to residents?
This is the tax rate we are proposing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Going on? Okay. Right, so this next slide provides a comparison of the fiscal year 26 tax bill versus the fiscal year 27 tax bill. And it is, please notice, it says median assessed value everywhere instead of average. And that is a change that the legislation put into place. If you look at the agenda, you will see that the agenda has a taxpayer impact statement, and we are required to use the median value of a home, residential home. And so just to be consistent and not cause confusion, we are switching to median, since that's what the legislation has said. And so this calculation is based on, and the appraisal districts provide it to us, the 26 median value and the 27 median value. And so it's not in your packet, but we're going to walk through this. So using the median assessed value for a residential property for both fiscal year 26 and 27, this slide shows the amount someone with a median valued home would pay if property tax, pay in property taxes for both of those years. So using the proposed tax rate, a property taxpayer will pay about $63 more than last year. And that's the amount that's circled in red, and that's about $5 more per month, and it represents an increase of about 2.4%. So although the median assessed value increased 3.3%, the decrease of 0.9% in the tax rate reduces the impact to the tax bill to a 2.4% increase. And then this next slide, can you hand these out, Jerry? We have a copy of this for all of you. So this next slide is a tax bill receipt. It's not in your binder. Jerry's handing them out to you, Jerry and Michael. And the receipt takes the amount of the tax bill from the previous slide and shows what a residential property taxpayer is paying for each type of service provided by the city. So I'm going to walk through this. The slide shows that the average residential property taxpayer is paying about $608 annually for fire protection and paramedic services, and about $300 annually for police service. Public safety totals about $958 annually, and it makes up about 42% of the total tax bill. Together, public safety and public works, who are considered first responders, make up 56% of the property tax bill. And then we have services that are covered by the Community Development Department, and those services total about $103 for the year and makes up about 5% of the total tax bill. Community Culture and Recreation, which is our Community Experience Department, makes up about $392 annually, which covers services offered by the library, the core, your senior center, tennis center. And those services make up about 18% of the tax bill. And then the last area is the general government, which totals about $502 per year, and it makes up about 22% of the total bill. General government is where HR, IT, finance, procurement, council, the city manager's office, city secretary, legal, combined services, those are all located. Those departments are all located in that area, and those are the departments that really serve all funds of the city and all departments of the city. One note for this example is that we do back out those one-time uses of fund balance, since that's not using property taxes, we're using fund balance instead. So we do anything, all of those transfers for setting up the public safety, the $6 million for the trails, those are not included in this calculation. This receipt also shows the amount paid by residential property taxpayers for the outstanding bonds that were issued to fund the items like Beltline Road, Royal, and fire stations 4 and 5. So the overall residential property owner is paying about $223 per month for both the services provided by the city and that investment in the city's infrastructure. And then this final slide, I know you like to see the over 65, and so this is showing that somebody who receives homestead plus over 65 will pay about $2,229, or about $441 less than someone who's only receiving a homestead exemption. And that really concludes my presentation this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Give us a second.
Okay.
Kevin?
I just want to say thank you very much for taking us through, like, step by step, fund by fund, of all the kind of recapping all of the discussions that we've had over the past several weeks. Just really helpful to kind of keep everything very organized. So I really appreciate that part of the presentation. Just makes everything very easy and clear to understand. So thank you for the thoughtfulness in that.
Can I offer a comment?
Certainly.
You talked about the seesaw. We talk about that every year. As the valuations go up, the rate comes down. I just want to point out, I don't think that's true of a lot of cities. I think it's true of Coppell. I think because of your department, your team, Mike's leadership, I think we've done an excellent job of creating this seesaw. But you listen to the governor's office, and his biggest complaint is that the valuations are going up and the tax rates are going up, and the cities are spending a lot more and taking advantage of that increase in many instances. And we've never done that. We've never yielded to that temptation. We've always tried to adjust in a way that favors the taxpayer. And I think we need to take into account the fact that Coppell has been an amazing steward of our tax dollars and really has tried to keep that seesaw in place when so many other cities have forfeited that opportunity and tried to take advantage of the higher valuations to increase spending that reflect more of the higher valuations than they do anything else. So I just want to thank you and your team for the discipline that you've showed in trying to follow our guidance to mitigate the taxes as much as possible, and to be responsible. I think you've done an excellent job at that.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I took all the credit and our team took all the credit. We are the facilitators of a wonderful process where the whole city comes together and creates this budget. And they do an amazing job, really, of being good stewards, as you said. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
collaborative
I'm
effort
fortunate
is-
to have a great group of people that I work with.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
I've been really expecting to see the new construction number drop significantly. And it's still, I mean, it's not like it used to be, but it's still decent. Any thoughts on that? I mean, you're not in economic development or community but I'm very surprised to see the number. That was reassuring today. You don't.
Yeah.
Let's just hope it keeps going that way.
Notice that 80% of the new development was commercial, and it's probably the new warehouses that got built.
Could be.
I'm sure
Hotels.
that's a lot of it, yeah.
That's always good. Any other questions for Kim?
It'll be better when it comes off the new construction column.
Do you want me to continue on?
Sure.
I have just one more slide for you.
Absolutely.
This is my last one. So this really is the remaining budget timeline, and so I wanted to make sure I put this in front of you. Tonight is the budget workshop. Tomorrow, as Mike said, by end of day, we will file the proposed budget. On August 11th, we will bring the Crime Control and Prevention District budget to you for a public hearing at the August 11th meeting. And then on August 25th, you will vote on the maximum tax rate. Again, that is not adopting a tax rate. It's simply voting on the maximum tax rate that we will publish. And that maximum tax rate is the .441166 that I showed you. Okay? Then the next thing, you'll vote on that. We will put a full page ad in the newspaper. And then on September 8th is when we will hold the public hearing on the budget and the public hearing on the tax rate. And then you will vote on adopting a budget and then adopting a tax rate. And if the tax rate raises $1 more in revenue than in the previous year, you have to ratify that tax rate. And that September 8th will conclude our budget season for this year. And we will kick off as staff the new budget on October 1st. So I just want to make sure that you had the calendar and knew what was going to be coming up. So any questions on that?
All right. Thank you very much.
There was a gentleman who did want to speak, but he has just stepped on it.
I'm sorry?
There's a gentleman who did want to speak, but he stepped out of the room.
Well, we actually have Mr. Land up next, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all, folks.
Oh, okay. That was quick. I had.
Was that the city manager's report?
Yeah, that was just it.
Oh, okay,
I'm
so.
gonna be the best one you get. No.
Yeah, really, that's okay. I'll take it.
No, I'm just teasing.
So, did he sign up, or?
I think he was going to.
He asked me downstairs where to go to sign up for citizens appearance. And so I put him up here. I asked him if he wanted to do it before or after, and he said at the end. But I don't know if he's still here.
He just stepped
Go
on
there,
it.
you have to check.
Recess.
What number are we on? What agenda number are we on?
Well, we skipped over 5, we went to 6, then I went back to 5, so we're up to 7.
Okay.
Why?
I thought we were gonna, I didn't know if there was gonna be any deliberation on everything on 5. I missed that one, I must have dozed off.
Well, that was when I asked Mike if he had anything to say, and he said, we're done, folks.
Okay.
We can go-
We are finished.
Okay. Can we go back to 5?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I do want to bring up on 5, and this is minute for us. I don't know that it's minute for the community. And it has to going back to the service organizations. I think we reduced the service organization request by about $53,000. And I think when you take into account, the benefit to the community that these relatively small dollars give us, largely because they leverage volunteer organizations. They don't have paid staff that are doing a lot of that work. I think there is a real benefit to the community from these service orgs, and it's a relatively small number for us. In fact, if you look at the general fund, if you take the revenues proposed and proposed expenses, there's still about a $500,000 cushion in this year's general fund proposed budget. So the $53,000 that we took out of the service orgs, it doesn't move the needle. It doesn't even move the needle on the tax rate or proposed revenues or anything. So I would like to propose reconsidering those $53,000 that we took out of the service orgs, because I really do think there is a true benefit to the community to that, and it doesn't change our math on this budget really at all. So I throw that out there for thoughts or deliberation. I would like to add that back. I would propose that we add back the $53,000, which is, it's $2,000 to love that neighbor, and I think a $51,000 for the Education Foundation. Those are really the only two that we reduced. And let me speak to the Education Foundation. While that seems like a big number, we talk about supporting the school district, and we do in a lot of different ways. That is one way we can support the school district directly to the classroom, the school district directly to the classrooms. It doesn't go through CISD administration or anything like that. It goes straight to the classrooms with these projects. And so I think that is a way we can add to what the teachers are doing in the classroom in a very small way. At the end of the day, it's $61,000 total. So I would be a proponent of actually adding their entire request in there. So I'll leave that for other thoughts or deliberation.
Kevin?
I would be completely in favor of adding the $2,000 into Love Thy Neighbor, but I just wanted to say publicly I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion with the Ed Foundation, as my wife serves on the board. So,
Jim?
Yeah, I really like the community organizations. It's the one thing we have that people that live here are trying to enhance the quality of life for others that live here that either benefit from what they're doing or enjoy what they're doing, whether it's the chorale or the theater, the orchestra, the Education Foundation, the Love Thy Neighbor presentation about the number of infants that they help in this community. We have a lot more, I think, hidden need in this community. When you look at how much more Metro Crest is helping people that live here, Woven Health Clinic, the recapture is taking, what, Anthony, about $30 million a year out.
It's less than that than in the past, but it's still a substantial.
Yeah, so it's, so anything we can do to help get grant money, because the money goes through the Education Foundation, through their grant program directly into the classrooms. So, we're only using the funds to benefit really a great number, a much more exponentially great number of parents, teachers, and the children in those classes. So to me, of all the things up there, police and fire are critical, public works is critical, but I think encouraging volunteerism in our community and helping to support the people that are actually volunteering, and then helping to benefit the people that they're benefiting. To me, it's such a worthy use of the funds. So I certainly support it.
I was here for the presentations, but I wasn't here for the deliberation, so apologies for that. But and maybe we take one at a time so that Kevin can be part of the conversation. But for Love Thy Neighbor, as I understood, we decided 2,000 less. I would love to know, maybe Mayor, if you can recap why the 2,000 less, the reason for that one.
I wasn't taking notes on the
Okay.
the
Or
actual.
somebody?
I think it was a new application.
No,
Was it recurring?
But it was an increased percentage.
Yeah, it went from 3,000 to 5,000 in 1 year.
So it was a big jump relative to what they
In the
had asked for in the
percentage.
past. So
Okay.
they hit the criteria, I think.
That was why they had to come present to us. I'm sorry. So that.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know, I was trying to figure out why the reason for the decision to land at 2,000 less, because I remember the ask being not a lot. I mean, when I say not a lot, if we look at what we give, like, the request for MetroCrest versus Love Thy Neighbor, right? I was trying to figure out the reason for not giving them the full amount, depending on the number of people that they serve for Coppell, but I missed that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, Brianna, it was just the 67% increase from 3,000 to 5,000. And, you know, we were looking to see, at least I held the position that the increase for every applicant was 3.499. I think that majority felt like we should stick with the 3,000 that we gave them last year. That's what I remember.
Gotcha. Okay. I would say based on what I know about Love Thy Neighbor, and I'm only speaking for Love Thy Neighbor right now, and for what we give to our communities, having sat around this table for this conversation many times, organizations have come and gone, right, for different reasons. And they all serve, for the most part, they serve different pockets of our community. And so I guess to your point is there an opportunity, if it's not going to have a huge impact, if any, to our budget, then why would we not see how the funds are used since they asked for an increase, and then revisit if they came back next year and asked for 10,000 as opposed to 5,000, right? What that looks like. And I didn't know if we were trying to reach a certain threshold or a number, if those were the only two organizations that didn't get fully funded, and if it was from a budget impact perspective. And if it wasn't, then I would be in favor of the increase for Love Thy Neighbor.
There was no discussion on the impact to the budget. There were certainly much larger components to it than these two. Okay, I've got 3.5 asking to add those back in.
I think I counted as a full 4 on Love Thy
Like,
Neighbor.
where's our 3.5?
Well, that's why it was 3.5. 4 on.
Are you okay with that too?
Okay, we
Yeah.
got
You got a 4.5.
we got a majority. I have a question for.
You're a half today, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Sit up taller.
I was going to ask him that.
Oh, I can tell you.
Okay, I was going to ask him to let him have the floor again, but Mike is going to tell us.
That's such a great question, I'll let Kim answer it. No, what we'll do is, on September 8th, right, is what we're talking about. Because it has a ripple effect through the budget, and it's fine that you're getting that direction, but what we'll do is we'll bring the actual amendment to the proposed budget, to the submitted budget, to the council meeting on September 8th, so that then you take that vote to amend the budget that has been submitted. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll go ahead and adopt the budget as proposed, and then that night we'll also have you do an amendment to the budget that you just adopted. It'll just be, otherwise we have to go in and change, there are several pages that will need to be changed before tomorrow.
So thank you very much, I appreciate that decision. Before we went into the charitable organization discussion this year, I went back and read the guidelines, because there was a couple of organizations I was sitting in my mind thinking, I'm not sure that these qualify. And I went back through and read the guidelines, and they absolutely, every one of them did. I mean, it was very clear. So, and those are guidelines, and this group is, it is in your charter to change those guidelines at any time. So we've been into this review process of charitable organizations now for 2 years. So I would like to ask the original group that put those together, and I think that was Don, Jim, and Bijou, to reconvene casually and see if there's any tweaks or changes to the process. Just, we've got 2 years under our belts with it, and I'd like you guys to kind of take a look at, you know, what's come and gone, and see if there's anything that we need to do.
Fine with it.
Bijou, you okay with that?
What are you expecting? I mean, we are approving everything is coming before us,
I'm not talking about, I'm
based on the criteria we put together.
Yes.
So what are you asking? What is the task?
The ask is to take a look and see if there's anything we could do better.
Better to discourage people from applying?
That's not my call. I'm asking you guys to come in and make recommendations, if you have any. A perfectly
We already
good,
made recommendation. What do you see a gap?
I saw a lot of discussion during the budget process this year on what we were gonna fund and what we weren't gonna fund, the amount that we were gonna fund, the amount that we weren't gonna fund, what we were gonna fund, the fact that we went through and changed that number tonight. That's what I'd like to see fixed. I'm not complaining about the decisions that are being made. I'd just like to see it done in a seamless fashion.
But all you're really asking us to do is just look at the criteria that we developed and recommended to the council and just see, based on a couple of years' experience, is there anything we would adjust?
Wait, that's exactly my question is. In 2 years, what did we find there is a gap there for us to revisit?
I don't think there's a gap, I just, based on our experience.
Because we are bringing back, even though we discussed last time, what are the charitable organizations we need to fund? We are bringing it back again for further discussion. So
It
that's
would just
where
be
I have.
evaluating the policy.
What is it?
It'd just be evaluating the policy, not the decisions.
I'm giving you the opportunity to reevaluate the policy. Brianna?
I'd love the group to also relook at who comes and speaks before us. And I say that because I know that y'all had come up with a threshold, because we didn't want everyone to come, but maybe it's something to look at of, hey, this organization, because the increase is incremental, they haven't been here in 3 years, 5 years, I don't know what what the threshold is. Do they come back at some point? Because some organizations are asking for really big dollars. I'd love to know what they're doing and for us to have a conversation, because I think that's important for us to just hear from them, right? I know we can read the information, but I think it's important for them to come and just have visibility and have a conversation.
So
If they haven't over a period of years.
Exactly, and so maybe it's not on the threshold, but maybe it's, they haven't been here in 3 years, 5 years, whatever y'all decide. I'd love to see them again.
So we did have a threshold. We allowed them to speak for 5 minutes, and we put a limitation on asking questions for 5 minutes.
Okay, but that's not what I'm asking. So if they don't have a certain incremental amount, they don't come before us. So I may not see an organization ever if they continue to increase whatever the what's the threshold?
Below the threshold.
50%, yeah. So if they come and they constantly every year go up a certain amount, I may never see them again. And I just don't think that's right if we're giving money to organizations.
Brianna, if I remember, the process that they developed automatically flagged this organization
Right.
that met a criteria. It also, if I remember correctly, we can look at the existing ones that don't meet the criteria, but if we decide, I like to hear more about it, any one of us could say, I like
Yeah.
XYZ to come. So that's
Yeah.
what I remember, but I'll have to go
No,
back. and-
I think you're right. We can ask, and then I think the other thing is maybe we put a threshold in the sense of maybe they haven't been here in a certain amount of years. Does it make some sense for them to come back? Like that night MetroCrest was here, right? They weren't scheduled to speak, but maybe they wanted to because they've got new leadership and they want to be before us and they want to have a conversation. And maybe none of us wanted to hear from them because we think they're doing a phenomenal job, but maybe they do deserve the opportunity to come and speak.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I want to recuse from that group.
Okay. Do I have a volunteer?
I'll do it.
Brianna, okay, thank you.
Oh, unless somebody else, but please, I don't want to. Mark, if you want to, or
I nominate
Ramesh.
Brianna.
Or Kevin,
I nominate
or
Brianna.
Don.
You volunteer too quickly, so I.
Wait, who's with you?
Don.
Oh, there you are, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've already elected you chair.
No,
I'll
no,
second
please,
that.
if anybody else wants to do it. Mark, Ramesh, okay.
Okay, I had Kevin and then Don.
Oh, I was just gonna say, was it, just to your comment, I don't think it's an individual council member, I think 4 of us have to agree to hear the
Oh.
presentation. So I just wanted to
Oh,
clarify
okay.
that we were,
Okay.
we were just all on the same page about that piece. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Yeah, Greg.
Don?
I don't think I have my hand raised.
I'll raise mine again, though. Now that we, I don't know if you have anything else on that, but I want to make sure I don't forget that you asked about 2 organizations, not just one, so I do want to address Education Foundation. We only talked about Love Thy Neighbor.
That was the half.
That was a half.
She may have something different to say.
Yeah, she may have
Let's
different then.
Speak about.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think you were asking, correct me
I
if
asked
I'm
for
wrong,
both.
you were asking for both of them to be reconsidered, and we spoke about Love Thy Neighbor so that Kevin
I
can be a
think
part
some
of the
people
conversation.
assumed we were reinstating both of them.
Oh, okay.
But
That's
if
what
you
I
have
assumed.
something,
Okay, no.
if you have something to say, I think you should say it on the Ed Foundation.
Yeah, because I guess I was, that's where I was, that's why you were doing the half. I gotcha, okay. And I was speaking only to Love Thy Neighbor. I will admit, I struggled with, that evening, I struggled with the numbers from Education Foundation. And maybe it was my lack of understanding, but I did struggle with the numbers because I didn't think it added up. At the same time, though, I want to, we are a community that has a great and unique partnership with our schools. And I want to make sure that our schools know that we want to support them in different ways. It looks different across the board, whether it's SROs or whether it's use of fields or whatever it might be, right? And so I do like the fact that Education Foundation is in the classroom and directly applicable to grants for teachers and students, right? So I do like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, we agreed to 10, they had asked for 61. Okay, and so we agreed to 10. So I guess here's my question. Everybody who said yes a minute ago, were you wanting to reinstate all of it, or were you only speaking to Love Thy Neighbor?
I was reinstating all of the Ed
Okay.
Foundation.
Were you, Mark?
No, I was only speaking
To Love Thy Neighbor?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I think there was a
Okay,
mix.
I'm sorry, that's my mistake.
Yes, because I had said, let's just do Love Thy Neighbor, and then we'll do Education Foundation. So I wanted to make sure that it was addressed. So I think we now need to speak about Education Foundation.
So there was someone that spoke about putting money back in the classroom. I think it was Jim.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yes,
I'm
okay,
in
you're in
favor
favor
both.
of it.
I'm in
You're in favor of it.
What's that?
Where's everybody else?
I'm in favor of it.
Yes, okay. And I am as well. I just wanted you to know that and because Ramesh, you and I talked about this too, like, I struggled with that. At the same time, I think that what we have seen from our school organizations is sometimes it's a one-time ask. Sometimes it's multiple years, but like our band came last year, right? And our band didn't come this year. And so we're not necessarily seeing multiple school organizations. And so I want to, if we can give back to the schools and it's through Education Foundation, I'm in favor of that.
Don?
I do, just a clarification on the Ed Foundation, do think we need to, like we do with other things related to the school, in the contract or whatever, we need to isolate it, designate to the Coppell schools, to the schools in Coppell. And I think they had already proposed that it was going to be used strictly for that grant program, which that's what I would be in favor of, is that the funds be designated only for that grant foundation, or that grant program for schools located in the city of Coppell, just for transparency.
Not Cypress Lodge. So not NCISD, but in the city of Coppell.
Yes, because it's property tax dollars
Yes,
from the city of
yes,
Coppell, so it
yes.
needs
I
to be in the city of Coppell.
would do
Yeah,
that.
that's a good catch.
Mark, you okay with that? Ramesh?
Thank you, Mayor. I respect the majority decision of my peers. I'm not in agreement with the decision, but like I said, I respect it. My problem from the beginning was that we are cutting staff headcount and we are cutting services. So we are having to make trade-offs. So for me to spend more on one while cutting services did not seem the right decision for me. What I would like to request is maybe moving forward next year, let's be more analytical or dig into the facts and anytime we are going to approve increase in spending, understanding that our ability to raise revenue is only at 3.499, our CPI is at 4.3, which means even if we have to do everything that we wanted to do last year, we still don't have enough money to do that. And on top of that, if we are going to increase spending, that's going to mean more services being cut. So while we did talk a lot about the service organization, last session we talked about the cut in core hours, the daycare in core. I don't know if all of that has been reinstated. So we are, as I'm seeing Mike's head shake, which means we are cutting services. So I want to be more deliberate about discussing those as well in the future.
So that is why I want that group to reconvene to take all of your points into account. And the other ones that Brianna brought up about, we used to have a policy that if an organization hadn't presented in, I think it was 3 or 4 years, then they would automatically be on. Yeah, I mean, we got rid of that, and it's been 2 years since we did that. Think about it again. So anyway, Jim and then Don.
Okay. So a couple things. This is kind of related to all this discussion, but it's not directly related. So Ramesh, I think I understand exactly what you're saying, but our role as a council is not to look at every line item that staff has spent, 8 months devising. I think the time to have that discussion is at the January retreat. If we decide we want to see expenses cut 2.5% across the board, they will present a budget, I promise you, that has expenses cut 2.5% across the board. Now, we may look at it and think, be careful what you ask for. We may not like what we see, but we're, in my view, we act in an analogous way to a board of directors. We set the policy guidelines, and then Mike is the CEO and his team then implement the policy. And we're not really responsible, and we shouldn't engage in looking at every line item. I think that risks what's called administrative interference. And we're getting outside of our guardrails. But I think the time, and I learned this, quite frankly, the mistake I made was when I said, well, let's take some sales tax excess and apply it to reduce the tax rate. Well, I learned the incredible difficulty of even trying to do that late in the game, basically in the 11th hour before we're supposed to approve a budget at a tax rate under state law. So, the real time, I think, for us as a group to look at what kind of policy do we want to set, what kind of guidelines do we want, to ask staff to implement is at our January retreat. And that's the best time for all of us to come together and have that discussion. Not so much about $2,000 on Love Thy Neighbor, which is like 1/10,000th of a cent of a percent of the tax rate, but really more the broader guidelines of what, because you make a good point with inflation being what it is. There's a certain erosion in the value of every dollar we spend. So that by itself is deteriorative. So I think I want to have that discussion, but I want it to be effective, and whatever the general consensus of this council would become as a result of that discussion, I think we have to have that then so that staff then knows what guidelines they're expected to implement. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is, I don't mean this in any way that is getting into everybody's soup, but I don't think we've been applying the conflict of interest provisions in the city charter correctly. If you look at 3.11 in the charter, I don't believe that Kevin has a conflict of interest, the way that it's spelled out, because there's no pecuniary interest. Amanda, yes, she's in the organization, but she's a volunteer. Now, I may be reading that differently from how others may read it. I may be reading it differently from how Bob Hager would read it. But I think everyone needs to look at that, because the charter requires that once the agenda is published, if you believe you have a conflict of interest with respect to any item on the posted agenda, you have to file a sworn declaration with the city secretary. And then you're recused from voting, right? Now, if you don't do that, I mean, that's fine. You may not want to do that. That's your call. Each of us have that determination to make individually. But if you don't do that, then the only other allowance under the city charter is for you to abstain. And you can do that. That's your choice. Every one of us has that choice. But if you abstain, the city charter says you're still counted as an affirmative vote on the item. So, and to me it's important, because we're running into these situations where there's effectively what should be decreed or viewed as an abstention, but we're split, or we're divided and we fail to act. And I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of staying within the rails of basically our foundational document, the city charter. And I mean, I remember one time there was a contract with TDI. Gary Roden was actually involved in that contract. He was on council. He filed a sworn declaration with the city secretary. He recused himself from the vote. All done perfectly consistent with the provisions of the city charter. And that was, in my view, a very legitimate conflict of interest, right? I mean, he was paid in part by the revenue that company collects, and we were going to pay them a bunch of money under that contract. But I just think we need to be a little bit more careful with that. That's all I'm saying. I will be the first to admit, I mean, I read the city charter, you know, a long time ago. I hadn't read it recently. I went back through it and I saw that and I thought, okay. In just 2 very short paragraphs, it addresses exactly what we're supposed to do. And I just think everyone, you know, should look at it and just make sure that we're conducting ourselves appropriately, because an abstention is fine, but it's going to count as an affirmative vote on the measure before us. And so I just wanted to kind of remind everybody about that.
As a side note, I had questioned that, but you had gone to Bob, and so
I did go to Bob.
we didn't make that decision, and I would agree. I don't think he should have abstained from the conversation.
Yeah, but to be fair, if there's something that you feel, that the way you define pecuniary interest, or, you know, consanguinity, or any other phrase used in there,
Right.
and you want to, you know, file a declaration that you're conflicted out, that's your call, and I respect that of any one of us to make that call individually. That's not for me to second guess. But where it's really come up, I think more than that, is because I don't know that we've had a legitimate TDI type, you know, pecuniary conflict. Where it's really come up more is where someone, I think, technically is abstaining, but then we haven't counted that as an affirmative vote. And so I just think we need to be mindful of that kind of mechanism within our charter that you know, we should be following. That's all I got.
Thank you. I can't remember, Don, were you next?
Yeah.
I believe so. And then Ramesh?
Yeah, I was just gonna offer it, so I appreciate we are looking through different lenses at some of these. I'll offer a little bit the way I look at it. I don't look at it probably quite as binary, like we're, you know, quote, cutting services in this area but at the same time slightly increasing over here. What I really see is overall, what is the benefit to the community if we decide to stop mowing the grass out here in the Veterans Plaza and cut a person out, which, by the way, that's not being proposed, it's a scenario here. That's different than funneling some money into some of these service orgs that are using volunteer labor and are way more efficient than city staff would ever be at delivering some of those services. Some of those services that probably never would be offered by city staff to begin with. They are pockets of the city or pockets in the community that are probably vastly unseen except by the people closely associated. So I probably just see that slightly different. It's not a one-for-one, I cut $100,000 here and raise $100,000 there. It's a wash, that when the effect could be dramatically different. You're reallocating resources to a more efficient or more productive place. And so I probably look at it slightly different. So I just offer that up as an alternative lens to look through.
Jim, thank you for your thoughts. Don, thank you for your thoughts. I have the greatest respect for everyone here, so I value your opinion. This year during our Jan retreat, we did give the staff the guidance that we are letting them go up in the revenue by 3.499. And for future years, starting maybe next year, maybe we have to also give them a guideline. If service orgs are the largest discretionary spend next to the mayor council budget, maybe we should set some targets there. That way they have better information on the total cost. Because as an example, if you take the service org, removing the farmers branch and farmers market and the garden, we went up approximately 26-27%. And in big scheme of things, that only adds up to maybe less than $1 in total property tax. I get that, but at the same time, I would not have had a problem if we were not cutting services, right? Because we are in a situation, I think, moving forward, we will continue to be in a situation where our costs are going to grow faster than our revenue, which means we'll have to make tough decisions. So maybe as part of giving the guidance to them, we should also give them a guidance of maybe we'll go up by 20% or whatever that may be. So
Ramesh, you started out by saying at the retreat we can give city staff that direction. The charitable organizations strictly fall under the purview of the council. And so the subcommittee is the one that's going to give us the recommendations on that. Okay. So that's the reason I wanted to reconvene that group.
Makes sense to me.
Jim?
Yeah, and I do want to address one point. The services cut, the elimination of the 2 hours at the core between 8 and 10 p.m. and the elimination of the sunshine room, the small daycare, was a cut that I understood staff recommended based upon lack of utilization, that no one was using the core during those 2 hours that would justify at least the amount of staff time when you count those 2 hours times 6 days or whatever times 50 weeks. And then same thing with the daycare opportunity. And then it was also pointed out that a lot of the commercial operations that, of course, competing with have already dropped that kind of daycare thing, likely because they weren't making any money on it because of the utilization rate. The service organizations, however, are exponentially increasing the value of that grant money through direct utilization. I mean, it's involving a lot of people in the community. It's entertaining people in the community. It's providing assistance to people in the community, whether it's Woven or MetroCrest on the larger end, or whether it's Love Thy Neighbor on the small end. So to me, there's no utilization issue. The efficiency of the grant money being used by and for the benefit of Coppell citizens is, I think, relatively clear. When we find out, however, and this is exactly what I meant about the guidelines in terms of the guardrails for our role versus staff role. When staff, I think, is well aware that we want them to look for greater efficiencies. I mean, for years now, they've been eliminating positions through attrition. They've been adding responsibilities that were part of one person's job to another person that's still here when that person leaves. So there's been I think a very clear understanding, but also a very clear effort made by staff to follow our guidance to increase efficiencies and as a result to save money. And to me, that's all that the core was. They'd spotted a couple of areas where there was a definitive lack of utilization and therefore a definitive lack of value gained for the expenditure of the tax dollars. And so they recommended that those marginal cuts. I just think those are two very different things in terms of the impact and the use and the reason for both spending it on the grant side and then, accepting the staff recommendations of the higher efficiency on the cut side.
Thank you. Kevin?
Jim, appreciate your remarks about, the staff, like your comments that you just made about the grant recommendation versus the staff. I definitely understand all that. I still wanted to say publicly that I do not agree with cutting the core hours. I just don't think that that's, I think that is a gathering place for many people in our community. The number reported to us was the number of check-ins, if I remember correctly, between 8 and 10. There wasn't anything reported to us about people that were already checked in that may still be continuing to use the core in those hours. So that's what I kind of go back to, is that while we can look at data to make those assessments, do we even have a real number of who's going to be impacted? Meaning that maybe somebody checked in at 6:30 or 7, and now they're going to have to, leave, a couple hours earlier than they would have to play basketball in a safe place or get their workout in or things like that. So while I understand the spirit of, of our role in, we need to be on the governance side in the sense that we are going to give direction and staff is going to go implement. We still have a charge to the people that elected us to have our ear to the ground and listen to people. And no one that I have talked to since this was proposed is excited about the core hours being cut. I completely understand about the Sunshine Room. I made some comments even about, I know former Texas Family Fitness / they got rid of theirs. Kidding Around just recently. But we are losing places, to watch kids, and maybe the demand's not there. Kind of trying to reflect and rationalize, what we hear in the report. And I also, heard that there might be plans for that room to be able to provide different types of programming or options. So I'm excited about that. But just cutting utilization of that facility just does not sit well with me. So I mean, in the breakdown, it's $24,000. I mean, yeah, is that fair? Is that?
I don't have it in front of me.
So, I mean, actually,
I wasn't here for that.
That was.
it's cumulative. You have the recreation coordinator position, which is tied to everything. So the recreation coordinator going away, part of that is the Sunshine Room, the adult athletic programs, along with the core hours.
So it's like $168,000.
Yeah, it was $168,000 just to translate that. Granted, from a standpoint of future value of money, that translates to about $190,000 in 3 years.
Gotcha.
So, so it may be minor to that one particular point for those particular 2 hours, but the cumulative impact, and what we're responsible for addressing is that cumulative impact.
So, my understanding that 168,000. So that's tied to one staff position or multiple positions that are.
Recall that they got rid of positions last year. They reduced staff last year. And so they reduced last year, and then they added another reduction this year. And so the cumulative impact of all of that is they are now at the point where they are looking at services. But it's more than that. I talked to Sherry, and it's utilization of that space, and they have opportunities. She shared that room could really be an active multi-use space that addresses their spatial limits while driving revenues.
To be clear, you're talking about the Sunshine Room?
The Sunshine Room.
Oh, I'm not talking about Sunshine Room, but I
Just the
understand.
rate.
The hours.
Yeah.
I am specifically talking about the 2 hours that, and again, I don't know operations, right?
So last year they eliminated the aquatic technician and the head lifeguard position, and so now this year they've included the recreation coordinator. So the sum of those positions, they are now at the point where the hours need to be adjusted also for staffing.
I guess I don't understand how getting rid of a recreation coordinator translates to closing the core 2 hours. again, I'm not in operations, I don't see that. I'm struggling, and I appreciate you sharing the numbers. I want to be very clear about that. Just from a philosophical standpoint, I'm thinking about the amenities that we provide that honestly keep kids off of streets because they're in there playing basketball, working out, doing their stuff, like just talking about things like that.
So let me address it this way.
Please.
It is a recommendation from staff, it is in the budget. This council has the opportunity to amend the budget as Kim described. Just understand, it isn't about the 2 hours. If that's all you focus on, that doesn't help us at all. You have to look at the whole package. And if you don't look at the whole package, then what I said earlier when I first opened the conversations you have today will get that much harder in 2 to 3 years. And so if we don't continue down this path of taking a look at services to the point of the question was asked, what else are we looking at? We will be prepared to talk to you in January and February about more of this is what's coming down the pike, right? And so let's say you choose to amend the budget. That doesn't mean we're not going to have to address this issue. And so you're, at some point, and we've been telling you this for now 2 years, at some point, some services are going to have to change, right? And at the end of the day, when we give you the list, that's our operational that's our responsibility. If you choose not to make those changes, I'm telling you, there will be a price to pay in 2029. Because right now, with the efforts that we've made so far, in the last couple of years, we've reduced that gap by about 3 million or so. And we're still looking at another 6 million to try to reduce. So again, it's not the 2 hours by itself, it's the cumulative impact. And we understand what the services, because our community tells us, so we don't make the recommendation lightly. But at the end of the day, just as someone said, no, I'm not going to say it that way. At the end of the day, you finally do adopt a budget that we present, and you do have an opportunity to amend the budget as you see fit when you have 4 people say, let's go do this. And we're perfectly fine. We do not take this personally, but we do take seriously that this is an issue that has to be addressed.
Absolutely. And again, I'll go back to appreciate those words, and definitely resonated with me as I was contemplating these, just what I'm sharing. So definitely understand that. I would go to say, like, I definitely understand that 2 hours is a part of a bigger picture, but my issue is the 2 hours. And I'm going to continue to say, I mean, listen, if 3 other people agree with me, then that's completely fine if we move forward with the budget as presented, or to be amended, or however we phrase it.
It would be, if you have 3 other people who agree with you and you propose an amendment and there's a vote of.
Is this the amendment to the
No, this
submitted?
the budget's approved. Much like we described to you the way
Yes.
that you're going to do your social services.
So I'm just putting that out there that I would like to see the core stay open. I definitely understand that it is part of a bigger picture, but I think that things like looking at what we, like even as simple as can we adjust the what we charge at the core a small amount to cover that. What was broken out, the $24,000 for those 2 hours. Again, and that's how, the way it was presented.
It's not the $24,000.
Then why was it broken out like that? This cost $24,000. That's my point.
Well, no, you looked at the whole $168,000. There's the adult league that's no longer part of it.
Yeah.
There was the operations of the Sunshine Room. There was the 2 hours, and then there was the cost of the personnel that was around $72,000, but that didn't include benefits. Is that right?
Correct.
Right. So that's how it came up to the 168.
Yeah.
Right.
I see. Yeah.
I understand, but maybe we're not communicating the same way. If you just isolate to the $24,000, that doesn't cut it.
And I guess
when you make the amendment, a $24,000 amendment doesn't help
Well, then I think that the way that the information is presented to us, because if you look at that chart, it looks like to keep the core open 2 more hours is $24,000 a year. And I'm
Cumulatively, though, it has that personnel cost on there too. You cannot, I guess what I'm saying is in the presentation, how else am I supposed to present it? I'm presenting it as $168,000.
Mhm.
It's all these things. Once you start with that personnel reduction, which is where we're gonna find our real cost savings,
Mhm.
it takes people to do that 2 hours. It takes people to do, right, the sunshine room. It takes people to do the adult league.
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to understand, is that one position, is that this part of this position here, or these roles that are being condensed, like that's what I'm saying.
It's a cumulative, it's as she said. Last year, we cut 2 positions in the rec center for lifeguard and aqua.
The aqua supervisor.
And,
Yeah, so anyway,
Aquatic supervisor.
so here's the amount of people that it takes to run the rec center. We are getting to the point where we are trying to reduce our costs. We're looking at places for efficiency. You know, I'll put out on the table right now, we're gonna be talking to you about reduced hours at the library.
Yep.
And you're not gonna like that conversation at
Definitely
all
not gonna
either.
like that conversation. But I mean, but you're right.
So these are the kind of conversations that get harder as
Absolutely.
we go along. So cumulatively, if you don't have the conversation this year and you say, okay, we're gonna do that, you push this amount down to now next year, not only we're finding this, we're also having to find this and this. So we've been really consistent. We've been telling you that the services are going to need to change. So we're not telling you anything. Now it's finally starting to show up because I guess since 2024, we've reduced 24 positions. Is that right? I may be off on that.
Here's what I will do, is I will yield the floor. If anybody else wants to pick that up where I'm setting it down, feel free to. I have voiced my concerns, I have voiced my opinions, and I definitely appreciate all of staff's hard work to get us to this point. I don't want that to be lost in my comments.
And that's what I'm saying.
And-
We're not taking it personal at
Yeah.
all. We're trying to follow your directions. If we're not following your directions the right way, then you gotta tell us that as well.
Well, and so in my simple small business brain is, well, just have that the part-time person that's working the desk work an extra hour or 2 a night, and then you cover that. And that's how my brain works, right? Because that's the world I live in, because I know I can pay an hourly person or 2 to cover those extra hours. So understanding that if this is coming from consolidating this position and reducing this position and doing that, I understand that piece better now, but it still doesn't change the fact that I don't like the core hours being cut, so.
I hear you.
Just want to put that out there again.
And
Now I'm
from
laying
a-
it down.
Yeah.
Anyone else pick it up if they want it.
We have several people signed, Bijou and then Brianna. None of us like to hear hours cut. And, it's not just the library after this, it's gonna be the biodiversity center or the life safety park or, who knows what'll happen with the art center. It's not just gonna be this. This group is gonna have to make some very, very difficult decisions, and they're not gonna be optional. You're gonna have to make some decisions that you're not gonna like to have to make. And Mike is trying to help you ease into that with as little of pain as possible. Okay, Bijou?
Yeah, thank you. Mike, what was your understanding from the last meeting discussion about when we discussed reducing the hours from 10 to 8? To proceed?
Y'all just had a discussion, there was no decision, no
Okay,
direction given.
that's what I understood. So
Yeah.
that none of this affected in this election.
That's right. Tomorrow, the budget that we present, so that, thank you. That's what's going to be in there, the 2 hours, the sunshine room, the adult
It will
league.
continue.
No, it won't.
It won't continue. So
Right.
I'm in opposition of that.
Right, and so the
I
way.
made it very clear last
Right.
time. I also had a discussion with you and the entire city council. If we have an issue coming up in staff, you made it last time, say you want to reduce half a FTE from the core, right? Yes.
Well, it was the person, the
Right.
rec coordinator position.
When we added 10 staff to Art Center a few years ago, I
Uh-huh.
said we will have issues coming up when we start adding count. And all the council was okay to add 10 counts, just like that. we are,
That's not how it happened. There was discussion, so don't, a comment like that isn't right, because there was conversation around that. So it wasn't like we just said yes.
so,
I'm just saying, you can keep going, but don't just say council just agreed to 10 people. There was conversation around that in a lot of context.
so what did I say wrong?
You just said, well, I said that it was gonna be a problem if we added more people, and all the council was okay with just adding 10 people. It wasn't, that's a very, that's a comment that doesn't have context. There was conversation around that and understanding what we were adding, why we were adding, and understanding the ask from staff. So we didn't make a flippant decision. We made a decision, whoever agreed on it made it as an educated decision based on the conversation that we had at that time. So I'm taking that as we just agreed to add 10 people, and that's not how it happened.
Okay. So, like I was saying, in opposition to that, I don't think it's best use cutting the core hours from 10 to 8. And you are saying that the budget proposed is what you have is reducing from 10 to 8, right?
That is correct.
Well, I may not be in favor of that.
It's understandable. And that's why I was saying to Kevin, y'all all have the opportunity to continue this discussion as part of the budget by amending the budget, right? It's the formal process of adopting the budget and amending it like you're going to do for the social services based on the direction that you gave tonight. And if you bring that up and people say that's what we're going to do, we'll make sure that that happens.
Brianna, you were actually next.
Thank you. I was not here for the conversation around the 2 hours last time. So I just, from what I heard, going back and listening, cutting services is never easy. I do not envy the decisions or the recommendations that come from staff, because I know that they are not personal. We have been a very, use this word, we have been a very blessed community with a lot of amenities that we are able to serve our community and provide so much that so many other communities don't have. And we have had to make some hard decisions along the way. Sometimes we've had to cut hours in the summer, or we've had to make adjustments at the senior center, or we've had to, not expand a certain building because we just couldn't do it at that particular time. And a lot of times our hands are tied because of what's happening at the state level that is not, or the legislature, which is not something that we are always we're not in control of, right? And so I just feel like, while I'm not happy about cutting in any way, shape, or form, so I'll go on record to say that, I see Mike and his staff as a people who are in the weeds. I don't think that's I can ask questions, I can ask for clarification, I can find out what the process was to get there, but I'm not here to do their job. And so if the recommendation, and based on how I know how you run your retreats from talking to your staff on, you ask the questions of, hey, if we had to cut, where can we cut? Okay, go back and look again and see where we can cut, right? And it may be that we said yes in the past to adding people, but that doesn't mean that things aren't going to change. And I think that's the position that we're in, and we're going to have to make some difficult decisions. And while I hate not having the core open until 10 o'clock, I also know that we're a community that we have Planet Fitness, we have the YMCA, we have other places that sometimes fill some of those gaps, and those have been our partners, and we may not just be able to be the sole source of all these amenities. And so I trust staff in these recommendations and making these, and coming forward to us. As Mike said, we can say no, right? But we will end up having to make some more difficult decisions at some later time that may not be popular. And I think I would rather err on the side of saying, let's go with the recommendation, because you guys are seeing the decrease in numbers, Now, if we end up having everyone leave the core and go to the YMCA, and now our memberships are down and we can't even stay open, that's another conversation. Or if people start to come to our citizens appearance and say, hey, you're really like I get out of work at 7 o'clock and I work out from 8 to 9, right? And I can't afford one of the other, the YMCA, and the core was the only place I could go, or that's where my kids enjoy playing basketball. We will hear from our community. And at that point, I think then we come back and we say, hey, is there somewhere else we could do something different? So I don't want to get in the business of the weeds of what you guys know, because I'm not at the core on a daily basis. Once in a while I'm there from 8 to 10. When Ivan comes home, he plays basketball at that time, right? And he will be sad about it. But at the same time, though, what's in the best interest of the larger community so that we can continue to serve in some capacity other amenities? And we're not saying we're closing the core, we're just making adjustments. So I'm okay with the proposal.
Thank you.
Gosh, I'm really passionate tonight.
Mark?
So, Mike, when we were looking at the big picture where all those items were tied together, you're saying if you add back the 24,000, you've got to add back the rest of that balance. What was that, 168 total?
Yeah, it was 168 total. It's the manpower issue. The
Yeah.
manpower feeds into the rest of that.
So you're
once
saying
once you add that, let's just say you want to do the 2 hours. At
Yeah.
that point, you're saying, okay, you're saying to us, okay, it's not really the $24,000. It's a manpower issue. We're gonna have to figure out a way to solve that issue. What Jessica has said, I'm not gonna fill that recreation coordinator position. If you're gonna put this back, then I've gotta do something. I've gotta do something from a personnel standpoint. To Kevin's part, I'm not even in the weeds of saying a part-time person staying an extra hour or two is the answer to the question. That's not what Jessica presented to us and Sherry. So it's a cumulative effect, Mark. That's how it's been explained to me. That's how when we ask the questions, it's been explained because of other reductions that we've done and other changes that we've made. And it directly relates to, and Kevin, I appreciate the question, directly relates to what's the utilization, and I'll say this, I remember vividly that we had reduced the hours from 10 to 9, and we had one person show up, and the council turned and looked at me and said, open that thing back up another hour, for one person that showed up. So when we make this recommendation, we fully understand who's going to get to hear about it. It's not just y'all. We'll get to hear about it too. But we can't let that influence, given what we're trying to accomplish over the long haul. Short term, it's an easy decision. We just keep the thing open, and you spend $168,000, and nobody gets upset. Somebody's going to be upset.
But it's got to be $168,000 or nothing. There's no portion that can be separated.
The only thing I can tell you is what's been communicated to me, Kent, Tracy, Kim, I don't know.
Well, we have to go back and have a conversation of if we brought parts and pieces back, what would that mean? Because we haven't, understanding then where the direction from council would be on what you would like to see brought back would help us understand then how we could achieve that.
Because I think what Kevin said was very valid. What about the people who are already in there? Did we take a head count at 9 o'clock and see if there were 20 people still in?
When Kevin mentioned check-in, I hadn't heard the word check-in. I heard utilization. That's what I heard from the team.
I guess how's that defined?
Right. Yeah. And so, are we speaking the same language?
And I just want to say that's incredibly fair because, what somebody intends and what I understand that is, that could be completely, so understanding who's in the building thing would be very helpful to that, so, but I don't want to be the claim that I know exactly how many people are in the building at any time.
Right, well, that was the reason, as soon as you said it, it was like, my deferral was to utilization.
Yeah, we do have, so it's 1,300 unique members have used between 8 and 10.
For the
over
course of the year.
Entire year.
1,300.
Users.
Users.
And then you just divide that roughly by 340 days, that's how you came up with the 22. And I know on the 6 for sure, they said that was actually, that would be, that's almost like a peak use to have 6 kids in there on any one day.
That was the Sunshine Room,
The
correct?
Sunshine Room, yeah.
So 1,300 divided by 340 is about 4.
But, so then I would ask then to define, sorry, Mark, but to define utilization, does that mean while they're, unique users in that time, what about those unique users that were there that checked in at 6 or 7? Do we know how long that they were staying during that? Because you don't have to check out.
You don't check out.
And that's kind of my point, is like, how do you know how long they stay? And how long are they utilizing? That's just my point, so, Mark.
Ramesh.
Thank you, Mayor. So Kevin, I hear what you're saying. Being an late riser, I go to bed late, so if I go to court, I would be using it late.
Me and you, buddy.
But the reality is, we have a $168,000 problem to solve, right? So if we are saying no to the staff on this, then they'll have to come back with something else, and we could be sitting here talking about it, and then the point of, if we are saying the staff knows best, and then I hear your point, we get to talk to people, and we have the authority to ask for something different. So I'm, without knowing what else is going to be cut, it's hard for me to make a decision on, let's not cut the hours, right? That's one thing. And then, for future years, I think we need to control what we approve to spend more, because we know lots of cuts are going to come. So that I'll wrap up. Thank you.
So our commitment to y'all is in January, February, we're going to come to you and say, here is, I'll call it a menu. That is one way to look at it. But here are the things that are going to be considered for service changes. Because if we can get you to focus on those kind of things, we didn't start off knowing we needed to reduce $168,000. We started off saying, where's utilization the least? And that's how it came about. So it wasn't driven by the dollar, it was driven by where's our utilization. That's the reason why I can say, and I don't mean to scare the folks at the library, but that's the reason I can say there's times at the library that the library's open that's used very, very little. And we know that because we have the information about who's in there. And it's going to be that same way for a lot of the things that we provide to this community. And I use an analysis that we've been doing for years. At the core, a class at the core, if the class A doesn't make, okay, fine. If the class makes and it only has about 4 or 5 participants, not good, it probably doesn't get repeated. If a class makes and it doesn't get good reviews because it's, right, it doesn't get repeated again. So we do use data to help determine what we are going to do, and what we have to do is provide you the confidence that the data we have is valid, and then you can make, you still may not agree with the information, but it's not, that's for you. For us, it's, here's the information, this is why we're making the recommendation that we're doing.
Yeah.
I have a question. I've heard the number 168 and 190, and then I've heard 3 years.
Yeah.
Can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, so anyway, it's just taking future value money. Just saying today's dollars are 168,000.
But it's 160, there's salary?
There was 72,000 in there that wasn't, but that includes benefits.
Okay, because I think the other piece that I want to be, or that the way I'm thinking about this too isn't just, okay, oh, that's right, okay. Thank you. I think the other thing I was looking at, it was not just like their current number salary, but also the fact that we do an increase of
Yeah,
whatever, 2.5%, 3.5%.
on the future value of money, just running the
Right,
equation,
okay.
basically at about a 4% increase over the next 3 years, 12%, but I mean, just,
Right.
it's just simple math.
So here's my question, maybe to your point, Ramesh, I could
For
be
you,
wrong.
it's
But,
easy.
here's my question is, you mentioned a menu, right? And where we may have to make some hard decisions based on what you're gonna bring forward.
Can I clarify?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I use the word menu, it's probably not the right word. Here are
I
the
mean, I like it,
yeah, but here are the services and the programs that are being evaluated
Yes.
for how effective are they, what's their utilization, how are they being received in the community, where are they in the community of, right? And so from those things, you're gonna start having to prioritize. Because when you start prioritizing that, that allows us then to be able then to start applying dollars to what we're doing. We know what our target is, and so we're gonna clearly be coming to you with a menu
Right.
or the list that helps us get there.
So then here's my question is, I would love to understand maybe the impact of making the decision now to add in the core hours being reduced versus having it as part of the menu that we look at and prioritize in January timeframe.
I mean, I can tell you the direct relationship there is that instead of taking 168 and it being an XYZ next year and XYZ plus 1 and XYZ plus 2, that's where you get to the, right? But it's cumulative along the way.
Right.
And it won't, unless something changes on the utilization, you're still gonna have to face that issue.
No, and I think I understand that, right?
Yeah.
We're still gonna have to make some hard decisions, and I guess I'm
Well-
wondering,
Well, but you may tell us, that goes back to the list, you may tell us on utilization, Mike, utilization, if it's 6 people or if it's 20 people, we're happy to keep supporting that. Therefore, that's a priority for us. And then therefore, that means we need to figure out, okay, if they're not willing to do these things, when I say you, is in this priority list, what are those parameters that you want us to use? Because we can't guess what those parameters are going to be.
and I guess I was just trying to see if it made sense. Respectfully, I understand your passion on different sides, is should we delay that decision by looking at things holistically versus taking this one piece now and then looking at a list later? Or is it that big of an impact? And I don't know, big impact.
Brianna, I'm going to speak out of
Okay,
turn.
please.
If you're saying you're going to delay that.
To January.
If you're going to, basically, we're taking a 1-year delay.
Yes.
Then why would we not take a 1-year delay in increasing the service organization increase?
Good point. Yeah.
So that's how I'm thinking.
And I guess I see them money coming out of different pockets.
It's all coming from general fund at the end of the day. Sorry.
That was just my thought.
No.
Sorry, so yeah.
Clean that up.
Yeah, I was like, and so, anyway, we're gonna go ahead, Jim.
So the other thing is, the next time you see it, it's not just gonna be a list, it's gonna be things that you're gonna be asked to act on. And that's gonna get bigger every time you see it. And every time you don't take action, it's even gonna compound.
And I hear you, I was just trying to think of the alternative, right? I mean, I think I'm still,
So, good discussion, points you heard. I have Jim and then Bijou.
I guess the only point I want to make at this point is that, I trust that when staff is looking at the entirety of the budget and every amenity, all the staff time, all the benefit costs, all the utility data or utilization data, that this is in an effort to try to make this incremental so that we don't have basically a financial or fiscal cliff, right? I mean, we could tell them, don't cut anything for the next 3 years, but we're going to reach a point where they're going to say, okay, we have to have a 20% cut across the board. We're going to hit some kind of fiscal cliff that's going to be dire, and we're going to have a lot more explaining to do as a result of that. So to me, staff has looked at all that data over the last 8 months, and they've said, okay, this is an area where we can make a very small modification and continue to incrementally reduce the fiscal load, right? And in the same way that they've done it through attrition of positions and, you know, assigning responsibilities and consolidating responsibilities within the existing positions and that sort of thing. And so there's another side to that coin, which is for every one of the dollars that we're cutting in this budget for the core, it represents a wide variety of other expenditures that they decided not yet to recommend a reduction in. We have the entirety of the rest of the budget that they've looked at and said, okay, well, the utilization here is more compelling with respect to this minor cut than the utilization over here at the library or the utilization at the senior center or some other facility we offer. Now, the next time, it may be a little something at the library, or a little something at the Biodiversity Center, but they're trying to give us this incremental kind of, you know, contraction so that we avoid this fiscal cliff and some kind of, you know, severe set of decisions that we're compelled to make, we don't have any choice to make, between inflation and the Austin Gap and everything else that they're trying to do down there. And I absolutely have faith. I've seen their competence, their high level of competence. I've seen, you know, all the incredible decisions they've made over the years. And I have complete faith in their expertise to be able to make that decision because that's their responsibility. That's not my responsibility. And so when they come to me and say, you know, we want to incrementally reduce this, I'm presuming they've looked at everything else, because I know they have, and they've determined that in the grand scheme of things, this is the one thing that we can do that will be the least painful because it's the least utilized, and will give us some financial benefits that will help to avoid that kind of severe decision in the future. And, you know, when we're told by Mike that we're going to continue to see this, you know, we've seen the chart with the increasing Austin Gap. And, you know, as a group, this council has been fairly stalwart in not increasing the tax rate simply because valuations have shot through the roof. So, you know, we have a staff trying to help to ease us as much as possible into an increasingly difficult fiscal situation over a period of years. Through incredible planning, the 5-year plan, everything that they do to go into this with our eyes wide open. And, you know, for every hour of the 2 hours every week that we're cutting at the core, there are other hours at these other facilities that are not getting cut. And that's important too, because each of these amenities have their own constituency. And, you know, I'm trusting that they're looking at all that and saying we can do this right now and impact the least number of people and get the greatest financial gain on an incremental basis that helps to avoid, you know, some kind of fiscal apocalypse. And so I think it's the right thing to do for that reason, recognizing that this is not the last of these types of decisions. And, you know, we could, although this has not been anything anyone's wanted to do, we could say, well, we're not going to cut anything and we're going to go to the town, to the voters, and ask for a 5% increase in the tax rate. We could absolutely do that. And we could tell them, these are the things that we're going to have to cut that we don't want to cut. Staff has recommended they be cut because of the utilization, no one's using it, it's not worth the money that we're spending, but we want to go ahead and spend it anyway, so we're going to jack your taxes 5%. Are y'all in favor, yay or nay? We have, I mean, that's the other side of this coin. And what we're trying to do, what staff I think is trying to do, my perception of this, is they're trying to incrementally get us to a place that may not be perfectly comfortable, but that is far less painful than some of the other alternatives. And I'm content to take the least painful, most incremental route until we get a little bit more certainty from Austin and have a little bit better sense of what's going to happen with respect to municipal finance. So, you know, I'm comfortable with the recommendations. I'm comfortable with the level of diligence and work that they put into this. And I think, you know, I don't go to the core. One could look at me and think maybe a few less chocolate cakes would suggest I should, but I understand a lot of people value that tremendously, and my daughter loves it. And she's going to be upset, Dad, why in the world did you vote to cut 2 hours off the core? But, and there will always, whether it's the library or any amenity that we reduce, is going to have a constituency that's not going to be pleased. But if as a community as a whole, everyone understands that by doing these little adjustments here and there, we're preserving a larger, you know, service offering for a larger group of constituencies on a combined basis across the entirety of the community, then I think that's the picture that we have to maintain. So that's where I'm at on this.
Bichu?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to read from a city document. In 2023, we amended the budget and amended the count from original budgeted count as a council authorized, increasing the employee count for the Arts Center from 9.5 FTE to 18 FTEs on November 8, 2022 during the work session. That was a work session increase. We didn't go through the normal process in the budget work sessions about increasing the count. That decision was made on a work session. That's what I was mentioning. And that year was 436.39 employee count. Increase to 2024 was 446.39, so it's 10 FTE increase. And 2025 is increased by 2, that's 448.39. And 2026 the employee count is 440.89. That's the document I'm referring to. That's all I want to say.
Just for clarification, we got the direction in the work session, then we amended the budget to correctly reflect that amount. So that's how the process works, just to be clear. What I was going to say is it my turn? Or you want to call him Don?
Well, no, Don is after me.
Oh, okay. So here's another way from a perspective standpoint. This is all going to be very fluid, very dynamic through all the conversations that we're going to have. So, rightly so, while we expect certain things to happen in the legislature based on what happened in the summer of '25, as far as the expenditure limitations, the revenue caps being lowered even lower and everything along those lines, there is a kind of a non-phone call, email kind of thing that you know, there's other ways for us to address. This is why it's important for y'all to weigh in on this at, like I said, January, February, and future. That same $168,000, we could reduce our capital investment in our streets or in our alleys. That's what I mean by prioritization. But the community has told us, and you have told us, for long-term investment, that's where we need to be putting our dollars. That's why I'm saying, if you change your direction, we don't look to the streets department or the, you know, what we're investing in streets or in the alleys or in the sidewalks to reduce our investment in that area. That's how we view, from a prioritization standpoint, what you tell us. So I just want to put that in perspective about why that direction is so important for us. And so, and if you tell us differently, even with what we come to you in January and February, is going to be on the program and service side. It is not going to be on the infrastructure side. First of all, we know infrastructure is getting way more expensive, right? And inflation and all that kind of good stuff. And just as a general comment for y'all, one of the things to be aware of, one of the things we do on our expenditure side, on the M&O side, we have slowed the growth. Is it growing? Yes. But we have slowed the growth of our expenditures so that we can address that. We are growing our expenditures at a less rate than what inflation is. and have been doing that for, what, Kim, five years, since 2020, I guess? And so y'all have done a great job. So don't, it's just, the dollars start adding up really fast. And from a direction standpoint, that's why this discussion is so valuable, and why the discussion that you have in January and February is so valuable, because that is where the prioritizations that we go back to the rest of the team and say, this is what they told us, this is what they're looking for from us, let's go to work, right? You're the what, we're the how, right?
So I'm going to add in before Don talks. Going back, I was thinking SB2, which was put in place in 2018, I believe, was the landmark decision that set our future budget. I remember Mike, after SB2 was passed, he said, I can tell you what your revenue is going to look like for the indefinite future with SB2. He said, it's going to be fixed. And he said, it's not going to be, it doesn't float according to inflation, it is fixed. And what he began doing, and we've all heard about it, the consolidation of staff has been done under the table. We haven't seen that. I mean, it's been done to reduce our staffing, to reduce our costing, but it's something that hasn't come out to impact us. My interpretation of what we're seeing now is we've gone just about as far as we can go, keeping our services where they are. So now it's coming up to the front of the table, where we're going to start seeing some service impact. And by the way, he started saying that back in 2018, by the way, that you're going to see some service impacts eventually. Well, that eventually is now. So just my 2 bits on that. I think Don and then Kevin.
For once, I'll not talk in financial terms, because what I am confident is happening with staff is there has to be a master plan for whatever we're trying to do, trying to land this plane, trying to figure out how we're going to fly this plane in the future. There has to be a master plan. And I would, I guess, caution all of us to be very, they work under our guidance and our direction, but the more we adjust their master plan, either suspends the execution of the plan, or it completely changes the plan in the future, which just delays things. And I learned a long time ago, before I met my beautiful bride, that bad relationship that you're in, that you won't make the decision to get out of, it only defers the pain. It does not get rid of the pain. You will still have the pain. In fact, it will usually be a bigger pain. So I always remember the phrase, and you will always remember it now, pain deferral. When you won't make a decision that is very, very difficult, but it has to be done, or it only gets worse. And so while they do work under our direction, we have every right to have input into the operations. Our job is not the operations, and we have to trust that they are going to make the right operational execution decisions to fly the plane. And this is not any different, to Mayor's point, to a great extent, this is not any different than what the school district is having to go through, or what other cities are going through. And you can look at some large examples of cities that have got all into the execution and operation part of it. Councils have, and they have to float bonds to do street maintenance because the budget is all over the place. The master plan has been blown up over time, or there isn't a master plan potentially. And so if these little decisions, we can't, while we love to quantify all these little decisions and the menu of things that we need to adjust, it's all part of a large plan to service this community. And every time you make a little tweak to it, or tell them to change the plan, it either stops it or delays it or makes them go back to the drawing board and redo the plan. So I just caution that we be very, very thoughtful about, while we give them guidance, let them be the operations people. They are the closest, as much as we think we're closer to the citizens, and we are in a lot of ways, they deal with the citizens every day. And so we should trust that they will present us the best options from a very, very global master plan standpoint.
Kevin?
Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just kind of leave this final thought. Mike, I really appreciate you talking about the priority and direction that the council's given about infrastructure, street maintenance, things. I do think that's a priority. You know you're in Coppell when you drive on the roads, right? They're nice roads, right? What I would say, kind of speaking to what Bijou was talking about a little bit earlier, the context that I think is missing in that conversation is that the direction that we gave from council in the with the Art Center was to try to generate more revenue. That was the context. So to do that, they needed to increase manpower to, not only staff shows and things like that, but facilitate the rentals. And they've increased revenue at that facility through that. Whereas we don't have tolls in town to generate revenue for streets, we have property tax and sales tax that generates money for streets. But we also have a core that generates money through membership. And so what I would say is that if we, I would just ask, are we utilizing our core to the best of our ability? I'm not trying to say that we maximize the price of a membership there, but is an incremental increase in that membership to cover things like an extra 2 hours or something like that, is that warranted at this time? And that's all I would say, is that we had a discussion about the direction of the Art Center and what we wanted to do, and we came to a, we voted on that, we came to a consensus as a council, that's what we wanted to do. When's the last time we've done that with the core? And that's what I would say, is that if we are, if the people who utilize the core the most, which are the people that are members, if they're okay paying an extra $5 a month or something like that to make sure they have the utilization, well, they would reflect that in membership. I made up a number. I don't know if $5 is the right amount. I want to be very clear about that, but I'm just throwing something out there. So, but that is a tool to be able to utilize to generate more revenue to cover some of these costs. So I just leave everyone with that, is that we don't have that luxury with everything else. Our library is is an asset that we, or a service that we cover completely. Our parks, those are generated, revenue is generated, similar to our streets. But we have other tools that we can look at. Again, not trying to say I want to price anybody out of the core, but I would ask that we take a look at that and see, is that a way to overcome that? And I'm sure our staff has already taken a look at that, but I would love to see what that looks like. I yield.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? We are at 8:15, so it's been a very good discussion. We do have item number 7, which is our citizens' appearance. We do have one person that has signed up to speak. Persons wishing to speak must sign the register and list their address, which he has. Presentations by individuals shall be limited to 3 minutes each, during which time the speakers must remain at the podium and address only the mayor and the council. Persons signed up to speak will be called in the order that they signed up. In order to maintain an orderly and respectful meeting environment and to conduct the public meeting in a professional business environment, speakers will adhere to the standards outlined in Ordinance 2025-1633. There will be no comments or deliberations from the City Council due to the Texas Open Meetings Record Act. Our requester for the evening is Mr. Vikram Mohan. Vikram.
Yeah.
Good evening. I have some comments to make about dangerous intersections in the city of Coppell, particularly those involving Lodge Road. The problem with these intersections is that they, one has to turn onto high-speed roads, 40 miles an hour, if I'm not mistaken, without any sort of light. And that is dangerous because how does one judge whether it is safe to cross? And if and it's bad for drivers. One can't imagine how bad it is for pedestrians. And like, these intersections were built for a different time. For example, Ridgecrest Estates, 15 years ago, it was just one household's land. Nowadays, it has dozens of residents. And that means that there is more conflict in these intersections than was anticipated. And the two solutions that I propose are one solution is to add a traffic light to these intersections. And this is the simple solution. It would be easy to do comparatively. The problem with it is that it may be difficult to fit neatly onto some of these, and it could disrupt the flow. Cars may not know that there is a traffic light, and it might also penalize drivers on the main road who would have to slow down frequently. The other option is a roundabout, which sounds difficult, but visualizing it could definitely be done. It does not have to be a perfect circle. It can be an ellipse, an oval. And the benefit of a roundabout is that traffic keeps flowing. Crashes, if they do happen, are more minor due to slowing down because of the curves. Like, cars will inherently slow down due to the curves. And the curves produce less harsh angles. And no one has to slow down usually on a roundabout. Plus, the center of the roundabout can be used for native plants, a statue, whatever gives the city of Coppell a unique milieu. Of course, a roundabout would be difficult and expensive, and
I'm sorry, sir, your time is up. Would you like to conclude in 5 or 10 seconds?
Yes. In short, both options for these intersections are valid, but it depends on the exact location and situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight. All right, that is the end of our meeting. Item number 8, there being no further business before this council, we are adjourned at 8:17 p.m.